Yeah, hi. So welcome to the second episode of TnoozLIVE. So this is a relatively new service from TNews, and essentially we're treating this as, I guess, like a TV or a radio panel show, where we're hoping over the next weeks and months to get together at least every fortnight or so, and basically just have a chat around a panel of clever folk to discuss some news items of the last couple of weeks, what else is coming up, of course, and also devote a particular time to a specific topic. As those of you that have already registered will know that this one is very much dedicated in the second half to the subject of big data, which has been a subject very close to our hearts at TNews. We've been writing a lot about it over the last weeks and months. So I'm Kevin May, editor and co-founder of TNews. Joining me as my co-presenter is Gene Quinn. He's my business partner, CEO and co-founder of TNews. So hi Gene, how are you?
Hi Kevin, how are you today?
I'm great. So Gene is in Connecticut in the US. I'm just outside of London in the UK, and we have a great panel who I will introduce to you shortly. So we have Larry Smith, who's a partner at Thematics. We also have Orna Hoban, who's Vice President at Datalex. She's in Ireland. Valen Perini, who's the CEO of the Open Travel Alliance. She's in Massachusetts today. And Carsten Kraus, who's the CEO of Fact Finder Travel, normally based in Germany, but is in Holland today and has thankfully taken some time out from the Next Web conference, of course, to join us for the show. So the way this will work is that we'll spend the first half of the show, like I said, just discussing some of the timely news items, things that we've been covering on TNews. With the panel, like I said, is very much based on the radio panel show format. Of course, we will be recording, as we do with our webinars that we have been running very successfully for the last year or so. We record the entire thing. So if you do have to dip out at any point and can't return, you can catch the entire show again on TNews probably within the next 12 to 24 hours, just however long basically it takes me to turn it around and upload it onto the system. So one of the things that we always do with our webinars, of course, is that we want the audience to participate in the best way that they can. So rather than having a Q&A at the end, we're taking a different tack this time, and we want you to send in questions throughout the show based on what you hear. If there's any particular question for the panel generally, or for any individuals on the panel based on some of the things that they've been saying or the things that we are discussing as a group. So you can send in a question using the little dashboard on the right-hand side. I'm assuming it's on the right-hand side of everybody's screen that says questions. You can just send in a question direct to me, and we'll get that over to the panel as soon as we can, or collect them together and use a suitable moment to throw those questions at the audience. As always, we'll be doing a couple of polls. These is just a way of us kind of gauging the sense and sensibilities of the audience, for want of a better phrase, see how they feel about certain subjects. And I think we might as well just do the first one. Let's do the first poll now, just to kind of set the scene for us before we dive into the first part of the show. So here we go. So what topic has interested, brackets, or worried you most in travel tech so far in 2012? We're being quite broad here because this is only the second show since the last one just before the end of last year. So if you can please start casting your votes on the screen. Those results are now starting to come in. That's great. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I reckon, Gene, if you just want to throw those results up there. So, the rapid rise of mobile, which is great because that's the first subject we're actually going to be talking about. So almost 4 out of 10 of you have said the rapid rise of mobile has interested or worried you the most. In second place, the evolution of search marketing. I think that's probably on a lot of people's priorities every time this question is asked throughout the years. Growth opportunities for companies, 17%, and managing deals and changes to product distribution at 14%. So thanks for the poll there, Gene. So we'll just go into the kind of the summary part of the show. As I said, what we've been doing is just kind of looking at some of what have been the most popular stories on tnooz.com the last couple of weeks. Many of the stories that have been getting the most comments online, that have got the most traffic. You know, we can get a sense very, very quickly by looking at the analytics at TNews as to what things are resonating most with people. And with wonderful coincidence based on the result of the poll, probably the most popular one of the most popular stories of the last month or so was this particular one, where we were talking. We got some data from ComScore, and they have, they have their vast panels of consumers and do these kind of studies all the time. But what they have found for the first time, and we called it I guess a wake up and smell the coffee moment. Their panel found that for the very first time, smartphone owners, over half of those smartphone owners are accessing travel content now. So only just a majority, it was actually only 51%, but a headline grabbing, the majority of smartphone owners are now accessing travel content in some form or other on their devices. So whether that's applications or mobile web. So some of the top things that they are doing when it comes to air-related services and content, 1 in 4 of those are checking airfare prices, which I think is not a huge surprise. A quarter again are looking up the phone numbers for airlines, which is, I guess, is a general search kind of things. But they're also checking flight schedules. They're checking the status, arrivals and delays of things, and they're looking up airport information. Now, perhaps most importantly for airlines, 1 in 5 or 21% of those have now checked in for a flight via their mobile. Just an example of what some people are doing with their when it comes to hotel-related content. So 3 out of 10, not surprised, are using their phones to check up on hotel addresses and directions and things like that. Almost a quarter have read a hotel review online now, and 1 in 5, again, very similar to the air content. They're comparing hotel prices and availability, and 1 in 5 almost have booked a hotel room via their mobile phone. So, yes, we've all been hearing for many years that this is the year of the mobile. I was at a conference earlier this year when someone said again, 2012 is the year of the mobile, which was, by my calculation, was the 5th year in a row that I'd heard that. But given that even if this is again the year of the mobile, I mean, this is quite a significant piece of a data point as such. So, I mean, to our panel then, I mean, what does this say to the industry? I mean, do we think generally that they have woken up and smelled the coffee now that we do have a majority of people that are smartphone owners accessing travel content? Do we think they're getting it? Are they ready for this kind of, I fear calling it a revolution, but are they ready for this kind of tidal wave of people seemingly wanting to interact with their travel brands via the mobile device? And please feel free to chip in, whoever wants to go first. But do we think the industry is ready?
I'll give you the short answer, Kevin. This is Valen Perini. The answer would be no. And I think part of the challenge is that the inconsistency of the functionality of the applications across the various travel providers, air, hotel. So for me as an American, for some U.S.-based carriers, I can check in online, but some I can't. Some allow me a mobile code or a bar scan that I can, or bar that I can scan at the airport, and some don't. And so that lack of consistency drives me crazy because I'm not going to spend time keeping up with who allows me and who doesn't allow me. And so until there's some true functional consistency, I mean, it's annoying. It's frustrating.
I mean, do you sense? I mean, Honor Datalex has many airline partners. Do you sense, from an airline perspective, it depends on their size, or is it their motivation that perhaps they've kind of grasped the fact that they need to be embracing mobile? Is there any kind of particular trend, or is it just some companies are going for it and others aren't?
Can you hear me clearly, Kevin?
Yeah, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay. I suppose as the e-commerce retail platform behind some of the sort of biggest airlines or some of the leading airlines worldwide, I agree with Valen. Some are moving at different paces, but I absolutely disagree that it is not absolutely on the agenda, that they haven't woken up to its priority. What we have observed is that we're no longer looking at mobile as this silo channel. We're looking at it as part of the connected travel journey. We're looking at it as a touch point in the journey. We're coming to the end of the PC era. Everybody's aware of the fact that the mobile and tablet environments are such that we've got to be as effective merchandising and serving our customers there as we are online. It's moving at differing paces. We are seeing it in growth phase, but already we're seeing, as you said, over 50% looking in travel, 1 in 5 checking in. Got some amazing stuff coming out from some of the airlines where they're managing to contextualize and tailor the offering on those mobile devices based on where you are in the journey. So whether or not you're on the way to the airport and you haven't got your car parking space, whether or not you're at your kiosk or you're getting on to the airport and you want to check in, whether you're actually even on board and you're Wi-Fi connected. So, you know, the future is pretty bright. It's absolutely top of the agenda. It's not a siloed channel discussion. I think they're moving at a pace, and that's what we've observed. That's what we're delivering to.
Do you
Hi,
think?
it's Larry Smith from.
Yeah, hi, Larry.
A couple things that need to be called out here is when you look at the research, the questions involve dynamic data. So words like looked up, looked at, these are all what I'll call search-oriented words. So from the mobile and the way this research was undertaken was to ask really how you are using it. And the difference here for the travel industry is how does the travel industry manage you as a traveler end-to-end. And when I say end-to-end, when you walk out the door to when you get back into your home. And unfortunately, that is a multi-segmented itinerary. So the question will be, will an airline, a hotel, a car rental, rail, who will be the first to say, you know, we're going to own your itinerary, and we're going to push all of this information to you, not just the information that we have for our piece of the itinerary.
And Carsten, I think you've got a... Sorry.
I agree completely, Larry. That's exactly what and I speak from the airline retailer perspective, the objective here is to own the customer throughout each touch point of that journey. And as you said, from the moment they leave the house to when they return from their journey, there's a huge amount of opportunity there that they want to capitalize on, as with all other suppliers and, yes, of course, retailers.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the question there, I mean, the point there is that all of the suppliers want to own the customer at this point, and so that sort of foreshadows our big data conversation in the second half of the show. Is, you know, who actually has the ability to do that, the capability to do that, and what do the customers think about it?
Carsten, just before I come to you, because I understand you've got a point to raise on this, and we've just had a question. It's from Greg Abbott, who last I heard was a data. Hi, Greg, and he says, you know, as far as he's aware, the Comscore mobile report was just US focused, which is correct. Carsten, you know, based here in Europe and yourself, Orna, he says, you know, are there any kind of regional differences? I mean, do we sense that Europe, for example, is possibly slightly ahead of the US, or is it slightly behind the US? And Carsten, maybe that one's for you first of all, based in mainland Europe as you are. Based in mainland Europe, but maybe not on the line in mainland Europe at the moment. I think we might have lost him for a second there. Yeah, Orna, so I guess the same kind of question to you. I mean, are you seeing kind of regional differences at all?
We're definitely seeing it moving. Well, it's moving at a pace. I think a similar pace to the US at this point. I mean, we are observing it in the Asian markets that, you know, it'll jump the chasm because it'll outpace nearly the internet adoption, or should I say, the traditional PC internet adoption. Definitely with some of our airline customers in the Asias, we're noting a huge amount of retail and merchandising capability. We're pushing our web services out into, you know, mobile Facebook. You know, mobile channels that their customers want to book on. I think from the perspective of the ancillary, one of the biggest opportunities for the airlines, which is the concept of selling beyond just the seat, we're finding that has been tapped into as a huge opportunity in the US and seems to be somewhat outpacing Europe at the moment. But again, they tend, as you know, Europe and the US tend to keep quite close in their pace.
Kev, if I may, Kev, I have just a quick point. Traveling recently on leisure in South America, we were held up with a weather delay in central Argentina, needing to connect through Buenos Aires. And one member of my traveling party was actually holding his iPhone at the lawn gate agent counter, showing them where the plane was in BA and had not taken off to fly to Ushuaia yet when they were showing conflicting information to the entire airport about when that flight would arrive at El Calafate and depart for BA. Now, I'm not blaming LAN Airlines for the weather. In fact, they're a wonderful airline. However, the complexity of all these issues is illustrated by that one situation where a sole customer was telling the staff where the plane was when the staff didn't even know where it was.
I mean, just to that point, Gene, one of the key applications that will come out in mobile, and we're actually delivering to this, a few key players, major players are doing this, the use of mobile for IROP environments like that in regular operations where they can tap immediately into that customer, reaccommodate them on flights, reaccommodate them throughout their journey. If there is to be another ash cloud, if there is to be another unfortunate environmental situation or delays or anything of that nature. And that actually does represent a key opportunity for these suppliers because it reduces a lot of the cost traditionally associated with managing those situations.
Okay. Carsten, will we have you back now?
Yes. Do you hear me now?
Yes, we do. Go for it, sir.
Yes, too loud. Okay. So I'll turn it away again. Okay. Now, you asked me about Europe. So one thing is that mobile commerce is not as strong in Europe as it is in the US. So there's only about 1% of e-commerce is mobile in Europe, whereas 4% in the US as far as I have the figures in total. And the second thing is that also there are many European countries where e-commerce in total is not so strong. So the interaction with an airline, when you're not used to using the internet for interaction with companies and not just for looking up things, it's probably not as you're not so much inclined to do so, even on your mobile when you're not used to use the internet very often. So Europe has a number of countries, and there are some countries like the UK or Germany which are quite, or Scandinavia, which are quite advanced, and there are other countries like Portugal and even Spain, where all this is very weak still.
Okay,
so that's the difficulty with Europe. And the second thing I wanted to note is that having half of the users having done an interaction with the travel site on the internet or with looking up telephone numbers does not mean that half of the interactions are done via the website. It is far, far less.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and just before we move on, there's a good question here from Edward Martin. Hi, Edmund. And we'll just have one person answer this, so whoever jumps in first. So Edmund asks, in terms of owning the customer at all steps of a journey, are there any companies that are standing out and are probable future leaders in smartphone travel content? And who wants to put their neck on the line here? Go for it, Larry.
I think, at least in the U.S., TripIt is the outstanding application for mobile phones at the moment that, in fact, allows you to stitch together your full itinerary and then spread it socially. I think they're a very, very big standout at the moment.
Okay, right.
I can say that in Germany, in Europe, Lufthansa does very well with their smartphone app, with their iPhone app actually, and it also works well with low bandwidth. So if you don't have good internet access, which happens often in Europe, then you can still access it and get your boarding pass easily.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to move on now. So let's go on to the next subject. We're going to go through this one quickly because we want to get to the meaty stuff on the big data part of the show. So a few noises recently about the daily deals. You could argue that there's been a lot of noise about daily deals over the last couple of years, but it seems to come up very, very often. I think, Groupon is mentioned almost on a weekly basis of potentially looking at this and looking at that, and is it seeing difficulties here? Obviously, it has its big deal with Expedia. And then last week, Chris Loughlin, CEO of Travelzoo, when he was on his latest earnings call, kind of had a little poke at some of the others on the in the space, as it were. I mean, he didn't mention them specifically. That would not be a good idea on his part. But he did say that he wonders whether the others are actually kind of destabilising the market, for want of a better phrase. That was my word, not his, I hasten to add. But it's interesting that there are so many players in the space now in the daily deal market. We write about a new daily deal startup almost on a weekly basis. I just wondered if the panel feel that where we are with daily deals, I mean, do we feel that we've reached some kind of watershed? I mean, Valen, you and I have spoken many occasions about daily deals, and you have some quite strong opinions on it. I just wonder where you think we are in the whole kind of life cycle of daily deals now.
Well, my feeling, especially from the restaurant and the hotel perspective, is that restaurants have generally, at least here in the States, soured on the daily deal because they're not finding the ROI that they were promised by whomever daily deal they bought into. In the hotel space, it's fraught with risk because it's a race to the bottom, and you're instilling in potential guests this idea that only price matters, only rate matters. And the airlines did that 10 years ago, much to the decline of their margins. And so I would think that in the hotel space, flash sales and daily deals both are really risky, and the hotels should only undertake them if they absolutely understand the numbers behind that deal, and if they're making it for a strategic marketing decision as opposed to just some panic buy for an unexpectedly down weekend, as an example.
Yeah, sure.
I think the issue that Valen raised is a fundamental one, which is understanding your own economics for your operation. Right. So, for example, in the hospitality restaurant business, you need a capacity around 65 to 75% to break even, and then you start making money when you exceed that capacity. So this is a quick and easy way sometimes for some businesses to just fill the glass half full and cover some of their nut on a daily basis, especially when you look at the statistics from the TNooz article, and you see that one of the biggest users in hotels are inns and B&Bs, who decidedly skew to special events and holidays or seasonal activities for their place. So filling up beds and seats at certain times of the year using this deep discount tactic still delivers customers and money to your business.
I just think on that, and thanks for bringing it up, Larry. I mean, the research which was put together by Focusrite, Doug Quimby and Maggie Rauch put this together, and they found that independent hotels, 42% were the most active participants in deal sites. Inns and B&Bs, 32%. Branded chain hotels, just 12% of them are involved. Vacation rentals and timeshares, 9%. Tour operators, a lowly single digit of 5%. Orna, I mean, Datalinx is very much driven by customers or airlines, but I mean, as I guess an industry expert, do you have a kind of a view on these? Yeah. And are you seeing any kind of traction in this?
Retailers have also.
Yeah, sorry, I beg your pardon. Go for it.
I think, there's we're not only airlines, we're airlines and agencies, but what's quite interesting about this is the whole supply chain dynamic, and I think I really think Valen put it perfectly and is equally relevant to whomever is the supplier of product. You've got to be clear on how many brokers of the product are in place to get it to the consumer, how much you're diluting your brand, how much you're diluting your customer ownership, how much you're diluting your product value, and at the end of the day, that distressed inventory, absolutely, you've got to get it out there, you've got to get it sold. That's one of the reasons that you've independents much more than chains here, because they have less negotiation power and access to some of the larger intermediary channels. But it is fraught, as Valen very well said, it's absolutely fraught with, you've got to be very clear on the economic and the effect and impact this will have to the value of the product.
And Kevin, going to your point,
if you look at Groupon here, they take their piece. Then got Expedia Getaways, they'll take their piece. You've already got a distressed inventory and lowest net rate. So I think I couldn't put it better than Alan did.
Okay.
Thank you, Lorna. So Kevin, quickly to your point about the brands, I mean, the last thing the big hotel brands want is to negatively impact that brand itself. So if you're an independent B&B with a name that's not well known out there, you can discount and not really suffer much in the marketplace for it. But if you're Starwood or you're Intercontinental or you're Westin, and the last thing those chains want is to have that deep discounting concept associated with them.
Yeah. Okay. So a question that came in from Daniel Kubis. I hope I've pronounced your surname correctly. Just a quick question before we move on. He asks, are the last-minute deal sites, and he's thinking specifically like Hotel Tonight, Tonight Only, do we feel that they're gaining traction? It's certainly, you get the sense that they are. Anyone has a point of view on those particular ones?
Yeah, I do. I think they do actually fill a niche because it's different. I mean, in the short term, you know, as Larry said, you want to cover your daily cost, and if Hotel Tonight or any of its other competitors are willing to sell a room for you through in an easily consumable way, that is via a mobile device, at a rate that you as the hotel find that that helps your bottom line, why not? I think that's different than having an advertised undercutting, lower than margin rate on Groupon, for example. So I think they serve a really valuable purpose. Again, the hotel needs to make sure they understand the economics behind it, but I think those are great.
Okay, right. So we're going to move on to the next one. So, Jean, if you could just flip the slide.
Actually, I think some hotel chains, I know about Steigenberger in Germany, have taken their hotels away from those daily deal sites, not only daily deal sites, but also hotel discount sites, so that they don't get them. And people have to know, they say, Steigenberger said, that they get the best rates always at Steigenberger, not anywhere else.
Okay, so they're still going direct, I guess. Okay, so let's move on. We've got another couple of subjects ahead of us, but we're going to cut that short because we want to get on to the big data one. But just very briefly, and then this kind of leads us in a way into the big data one. And this was a very interesting guest article that was produced for us last week by a chap by the name of Matthew Barker, who's a managing partner at Hit Riddle here in the UK. And he's talking about this sense that we're having a new paradigm in search marketing in the travel industry, which is based on search engines arguably being there is this need to get over the link spammy nature of the way some travel content is put together, and we need to get back to a kind of a professional, unique, expert kind of content perspective on all this. Do we think, and Larry, without giving away your crown jewels when we get into kind of semantic search and big data next, I mean, do you have a kind of an opinion on whether this article was correct in that we are at that kind of tipping point where search generally is about to change, and certainly from a marketing perspective?
Oh yeah, the article I think was very, very interesting, and in its focus on the link building aspect to it, because it's treating the volume of connections as the reason you're an authoritative source or the authoritative solution to the search query. And particularly in travel, that's far from being the judgment factor. Popularity, in fact, often breeds a lesser experience than a greater experience. Certainly, I think one would suggest that the smaller, more private hotels in many markets are often, more enjoyable or memorable, at least, than some of the larger chains that feel like the same hotel in every market you've been to.
Yeah.
So
sure.
In that case, I think it was spot on for that. I think some of the other components, however, for marketing, and articles that have been written in TNooz, including by myself, that the whole search paradigm is failing to uncover the unique attributes and differences between hotels. For example, a related article was the Deal Angel and Deal Fatigue article in TNooz, which talks about how the search for the lowest price, and that of course is wrong. If I'm traveling to San Francisco, as described in the article, I'd like to know which hotel has some unique artwork. I'd like to know which hotel has a particular brand of bedding, potentially. I'd like to know a lot more about amenities, and I'd like the amenities information to come up well before the pricing information.
Okay, Carsten, and you're in this kind of same space, so like I said, without giving too much away from the big data discussion, what are your views on this?
So my first thing of being in a certain space is locally, I'm currently in a hotel room in Amsterdam, and I have a grand piano in my hotel room.
Nice.
So and it's actually it's tuned. I can play. So this is the very special kind of hotels I like. So this is probably what some people would like to have, very special hotel rooms if it comes to hotels. But it's very difficult to organize this data in a way that every wish can be fulfilled. But it has not so much to do with search marketing directly, searching the very special hotel rooms, because I think as long as it does not come to Google as the source of finding the right hotel, but if you go to an OTA, the trouble is that the OTA has first to organize the data, and then we have to have some format where the data is delivered, and then the customer has to know that he can search for those things, so there will be quite some time. So we do semantic search, and we interpret full text queries, so people could type in something with a piano, but they don't. Only 5% of the users currently understand what they can do, and 95% are just typing in something like Egypt and nothing else.
Right. Okay. Okay. So we're going to get on to a lot of this in the next section. So Michael Jacques here on the question dashboard does make one rather flippant comment. Thank you, Michael. He says he wonders whether you're paying too much for your room, given that you've got a grand piano in it, which is maybe. So thank you very much, Michael. So we were hoping to get through some more topics. We were also going to discuss. There's some interesting moves in Asia with some of the GDSs there. Obviously, Travelport has got into is now working with Access in Japan. So we were going to get on to talking about Asia moves, but we won't because we've run out of time. And we were also going to discuss what certain things like social media are doing, in the sense that it now takes a video on YouTube, for example, for airports to react and take measures when people are getting blown away at the end of St. Martin's Airport in the Caribbean. So there's lots of discussions there around how things like social media are driving policy rather than being reactive rather than proactive. What I will say is that all of the items that we have been discussing, when we put the video up on TNooz in the next 24 hours, we will put a link to each of those stories so that you can reference them later on. Unfortunately, we couldn't do this, obviously, on the screenshot that you can see now. So I'm now going to hand over, I think, after we're going to do one more poll, but we're going to get into the, I guess, as I said before, the meaty part of the show. So, but what we wanted to do was kind of get a sense of where people are with their understanding, I guess, of big data. So if you want to throw up the next poll question there, Jean, and it is as follows. Which organisations are best positioned to bring big data techniques to travel? So, top one, GDSs. Second, search companies, Google, for example. Social networks. The next one, intermediaries and suppliers, or rather flippantly, people not from these parts, i.e. those from outside the industry. So who do we think is best positioned then, if we could start casting our votes? Okie dokie. And I think, Jean, we've got enough in now for you to throw out the results there, please. Yeah, not a huge surprise for me personally. So just over a third, search companies, Google, etc. And exactly a quarter, intermediaries and suppliers. Then it's our friends the GDSs, 17%. Then the social networks, 13%. And only 1 in 10 of you believe an outsider will come in and do a great job with big data. So if you can close the poll there, and I'm now actually going to hand over to Jean, because Jean was with Larry and Valen in Miami at the Open Travel Alliance Advisory Forum a couple of weeks ago. There was a big session there about big data, no pun intended, but he came back very enthused about big data, and it's certainly, his head is full of all this stuff at the moment. So Jean, certainly the glamorous part of TNooz as well, if I can hand over to you to drive this particular part of the discussion. And just before we do, please don't forget to send in your questions. We're getting loads in, but you can use the panel on the dashboard to do so. Gene.
Thank you very much, Kevin, and hello to our panel. I think it's a pretty fair assumption at this stage of the game that if you ask 10 people in the travel industry, what do you mean by big data, you may get 11 answers. There's quite a bit of interest, as we've seen on the comments section of some excellent treatises that have been written on the matter by folks like Larry Smith and Timothy O'Neill Dunn and a few others. But I had the pleasure of being with Larry and Valen and a number of other network and software engineers in the travel industry in Miami a couple of weeks ago. So without me doing a review of the theme of a large part of that show, Larry, could I ask you and possibly Valen to chime in to give us a brief overview of what you mean by big data and what the travel industry should, at least at this stage, be thinking of in terms of big data and what it all meant in this gathering of thinkers in Miami a couple weeks ago.
Great. Thank you very much, Gene. And, you know, big data has become the big topic because it's big. And, you know, you hear words like petabytes and exabytes and zettabytes. And, you know, basically what this means is you know, just tons and tons of data points about all kinds of things. And within the travel industry, which was basically, as we know it, born from big mainframes and IBM TPF booking engines and the like, there's just a ton of data that's being thrown out there within the industry itself. Then secondly, what we've seen from the mobile conversation we just had and the social environments that we're seeing is suddenly there's tons more data being layered on by the customers, both in real time from reviews and other types of commentary. So we've got this exponential growth from what I'll call outside the industry by the actual travelers, and as well by the staff, hoteliers, tour operators, etc., who are also pushing more data into the stream. Then you've got people that are what we call mashing up, combining certain data with other data, and you've got the geotags, longitude, latitude data from, for example, like Google Maps and equivalents. So all of this data has grown exponentially and starts getting combined with each other. And so the value to the travel industry is how they're going to apply all of this big data to their product in a way that adds a lot more value, all right, to the actual experience. So some of the issues around big data that I should point out as well are things such as ontologies, which describe the data, semantics, linked data, structured data. And all of these components around the big data talk to whether or not you're going to be pushing your data out or pulling other people's data in, and how you're going to add value to all of that. And where I particularly like to play is in the area of semantics, where we can start adding a lot of value by enhancing the meaning of the data. You know, the data in and of itself is not valuable. It's the understanding, letting people use the data for value, that becomes important.
Thanks, Larry. Valen, could you put a little perspective on this about what Open Travel is trying to do to coordinate discussions of how to migrate from an API world, an application programming interface world, in the specific databases into this area of use of massive data in merchandising and personalization applications to consumers going forward?
Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to. So, what Open Travel has traditionally done is create, what we call a common information exchange model. So historically using XML, we're shifting over to XML objects now, but as a way for trading partners to exchange information about the transaction or the traveler. And of course, building ontologies, Thematics is a member of the Open Travel Alliance and is active in one of our semantic projects. Building ontologies allows that data that trading partners exchange to be much more focused, much richer, and much more useful when it comes to merchandising and ultimately retailing, as Orna likes to talk about. So for us, as a standards body serving the industry, we recognized that the ability to better access the big data through richer information exchange models is where we needed to be. Otherwise, we weren't going to be particularly relevant to the industry. So we have leapt into that pool of semantics and providing trading partners the ability to actually winnow down the big data, what's important out of those gigantic warehouses of big data, to really provide a much more personalized and targeted offer or service to a traveler. And that's where we are, and we're there, and we're in it, and it's a great new area for us, and we're really excited to be there.
It's Kevin here. We've had a question here, and this kind of leads on from what you've just been talking about, Valen. And this comes from Alistair Williamson Pound. Hi, Alistair. He says, with big data comes big responsibility. So, can the panel comment on what steps they think companies should be taking to make sure travel content is accurate, consistent, and comprehensive, i.e., is everyone really standardizing everyone else's data to suit their own systems?
May I just remark something on big data? Because
yeah, of course.
I think there may be two definitions of big data. Travel content is not big data in my view, and maybe the panel disagrees with that, but for me only the transactional data is really big data. If you had 500 travel information, so like attributes of each hotel in the world, it would only just be a few gigabytes. It's not really big data. What we're talking about is all the bookings, the clicks on every hotel in the world, on every travel site, measuring or tracking every single click and trying to make sense out of that. That's big data for me, and the kind of analysis that IBM and those people propose.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's Larry. To answer the question, Gene, there is a word that Dr. Deborah McGinnis, who keynoted the Open Travel Alliance conference, put up, and the word is called provenance, P-R-O-V-E-N-A-N-C-E, from the French word, where does it come from?
Oh, Larry, you beat me to it.
Oh, sorry, Valen. Provenance is a hugely big and important big data word, and yes, you've got to know where it came from, and as we say, sometimes it's important to be accurate and reliable, but if you're not accurate, at least be inaccurate in a consistent fashion. So, so it's kind of important.
But this comes to one important point. This is the accuracy of master data. When you have master data, so the data you relate to from the transactional data, when the master data is incorrect, then everything will be incorrect, but it will be incorrect in a consistent way.
Right.
This is, I mean, that's a common and an ongoing challenge especially in the hotel industry. The hotel industry has been struggling around just being able to identify every single hotel with a common, unique global identifier. And I mean, the hotel industry has been talking about this for years, and it's such a basic thing, but it's just so difficult across to answer the listener's question. It's so difficult across the industry, especially in the hotel industry, where there's some fragmented structures of ownership, to get everyone to agree on what data actually is.
Orna, I know you're trying to make a point here.
Oh, sorry, I think I've got a problem with my mic.
No, you're good.
I think, big data is, big data is messy, it's scary, and I think we're scaring the industry into possibly going back to the 1990s, when we created the great and wonderful CRM concept, and we challenged the industry with normalization of data and master data, et cetera, et cetera. I think what really worries me here is we're going back to that whole generation where we're going to create an entire industry, we're going to create a lot of inefficiencies. Data is a crucial retail currency, full stop. And if the airlines and those that have responded to that poll are going to hand that data out to search players or GDS or whoever, that's going to be a big threat, because we're increasingly competing for engagement with the traveler or with the consumer. We've got to learn how to deal with our messy, scary, but fun data. And, for us, the airlines, or for the travel agencies that we deal with, they're dealing with very unique and powerful data about their customers, about their shopping and traveling habits, and they're looking to how they can increasingly leverage that and use it in the form of active listening to the traveler at every point in the travel journey again. Use it to segment the customer more effectively and optimize more compelling price promotion in place. But the challenge here is Google, Facebook, Apple now lead the big data datarati generation. They're aggregating data from billions of potential travelers, and as travel suppliers, as travel retailers, it's time not to get too scared about the unstructured mess of big data. Start to do what the Googles and the Facebooks and Apples are doing, which is, just look at the trends, look at the attributes, and use it to generate weightings to identify intent and preference.
Right,
that's all possible.
You're right, it's possible, Orna, but they're not. I mean, and that's where you get, like, even in this morning's news, there was a company that's been funded $2.1 million, Duetto, that's going to actually, I hate to use the word data warehousing, but that's what they're going to do, is go in and mine a supplier's data, create a data warehouse of the actionable data. Well, sure, American Airlines or British Airways could do it, but they're not. And so there's not.
Well, we're going to see lots of, blank IPOs, and we're going to see the Googles, and we're going to see, as I call it, the FAGs, data generation, will absolutely outpace in terms of how they can aggregate from these travelers and use that to leverage ownership of the customer. I think my only warning is, let's not get caught up in, we need a multi-billion-dollar engagement or a multi-million-dollar engagement to drive an extensive, again, CRM/business intelligence/data restructuring project for the next 5 years and get nowhere. We've got to get into real-time listening of our customer. We have a lot of data that is available to us. It is our big data. It's there. It's messy. Now just look at the trends and start to use it. And I think that's what some of the guys like Larry and James are showing. You can do it now. You can do very, take a tactical approach to the data that's out there. Don't wait until you have structured and normalized. You'll be here in 2020.
Okay, if I may, if I may, Karsten, I've just put up the results of our earlier poll. Kevin, are you seeing those?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, 10% of the people say not from these parts is how this is going to get solved. Let me postulate something, and we can go around the table. There were interlopers from Microsoft in the mid-1990s who created what was to become Expedia, and they engaged in a giant cream skimming exercise with the hospitality industry to grab remnant inventory and turn it into a business, thereby changing the face of travel agency forever. It's quite possible that the 10% of the folks from today's poll are correct. So my question for the panel is, are the folks who can figure out how to do what the travel industry may be finding quite difficult to figure out because they can't stop running their business to create a new one, in a position to create new paradigms, new platforms, and new ways of selling travel that suppliers, GDSs, CRM systems, and current technology providers niched out to the travel industry are incapable of inventing in real time? Discuss.
Hey, it's Larry. I think had I been allowed to vote, I would have actually picked that one as the most likely outcome of not from these parts. And there's a couple reasons for that. Big data is messy, and managing petabytes of data is of consequential expense. This is not free. You need big repositories, big analyses, et cetera, to make any sense of this. So when you tie that to the fact that there is a huge lack of what we call quantitative analysis in the marketplace, what you see is actually a lack of qualified people to do this. So you've got PhDs in data analyses that are worth millions now. And the likelihood, frankly, of some of these people landing within existing travel enterprises with legacy systems and 2-decade-old, 3-decade-old operations is just not going to be likely. So I think what we're going to see very much is some outsiders, a lot of the quants disenfranchised from the financial penetrating and just crunching data in unique ways. And to your point, we're going to see a series of, for example, high net worth individuals and their travel itineraries and understanding that. And we're going to see huge analyses of pricing dynamics and how to extract that extra penny profit from bookings. And that's going to come from outsiders, not from insiders.
And my vote,
sorry, I'd like to disagree.
Go ahead, Orna.
Sorry, I hope that doesn't happen. I hope the outsiders come in to facilitate with the requisite tools and sophisticated abilities and algorithms and instrumentation tools, etc. But I hope to Lord that this time, that we actually allow the data to be informed by listening, that we actually allow the airline suppliers, the travel agencies, the hotel suppliers, etc., to actually step in and understand what is the value of the data, what information is required. And I think their revenue functions, their yield functions, I would agree, I predict that they will be more travel data scientists than ever before. But I truly hope that it is not coming from the outside. This is the currency that will allow their businesses to survive.
And my feeling is that, I'm going to go. Wait, I'm going to go. So my feeling, like Larry, if I could have voted, I would have voted for people from the outside. And the reason is, I think Jean touched on it, is retailing and merchandising and managing data is not a core competency of an airline or a hotel company or a car rental company or a cruise line. Their job is to provide a room to sleep in and an airplane to fly from point A to point B, and investing time and effort and money into something like this takes away from that core competency. I think that companies like FactFinder and Thematics, who come from other industries or have experience in other industries and have solved this problem in other industries, are great resources for the travel industry who's new to this type of thing. And in my own experience within Open Travel, I mean, there are very few companies, they're all very interested in it from the supplier side specifically. They're all very interested in it, but they really don't know how to best get started because, again, it's just not a core competency.
Well, let me put it in this context, Val, and I remember, let's say, actually more, probably 6 or 7 years ago, we were looking at business rules engines, and it was the next big thing, and we looked at all the best practice players in the marketplace. We built our own, and we built it in partner with our customers as a domain-specific capability. Our customers know better, much better, how to retail and merchandise their own products. And I strongly disagree that the job of an airline supplier or hotel supplier is to provide a bed or put an airplane up in the sky. I absolutely, that's, for me, is a fundamental issue with this industry. We are trying to drive towards retailing capabilities and allowing the suppliers of their own products to control the positioning and the engagement and the listening to their customers. Any outside resource that facilitates that, very welcome, but absolutely, totally disagree that that is not their job. It is their product. It is manufactured by them. It is positioned by them. It is promoted by them. It is their brand. It is their value, and it is their customer.
Okay, Karsten, if I may, Larry, Karsten, I think you were trying to make a point, and then I want to bring Kevin back for some audience comments and questions.
Yeah, I just want to back up on the aforesaid. Revolutions are normally not made by the establishment. The establishment tries to keep things as they are, and other people do the revolutions.
Yes, indeed. Okay, I mean, on that, someone has just said immediately, "Amen, Karsten." So well done, Karsten. So Robert Cole of Rock Cheetah made the point that ITA software, arguably revolutionized air search, and they were, in his words, an example of smart people from outside the industry disrupting industry paradigms. I think that that discussion there also answered questions by Michael Jacks and James Parks as well. So I hope we did cover those off. Now here's a kind of a practical one more than anything, and this is from Thomas Tullock, and he asks, he's from TRX. He says, big data has actually existed for a long time. The challenge to leveraging big data is having the tools available to mine and make sense of those data sets. So, question, what tools are folks using to do exactly that?
I think, I suppose from our perspective, we're using much more scalable platforms in database environments, be it a Mongo environment, Cassandra, etc. We're building much better visualization tool sets. But to us, the data is only just one aspect. The true value for us is how we facilitate a business rules and an intelligent merchandising environment that will allow the player to define attributes and define personas and segment the customer effectively, but most importantly in real time. This is about visualizing and optimizing in real time. It's also about being able to do more effective testing of market, of product or price, etc., and of tailoring of product. So for us, it's about, yes, set up the challenges, set up a more effective way to capture and to store, that is the database platforms, and there's a lot more advancements in that in the industry now, less structured. The second challenge for us is the visualization. You have to set up the tool sets to actually visualize that data. But most importantly thereafter is how to turn that into an actionable decision or test or optimized position.
Thanks, Lorna. Larry, let's make one more point through you, and then we're going to be wrapping up this section.
Right. I was just going to add, rather than trying to address what tools to use, the business mission first and foremost is to define what we call a use case. And the use case is, what very specific objective do I want to fulfill? So in the context of the work Open Travel Alliance and its membership is doing, we put out, for example, the Schema 2.0 and ontology work to fulfill a use case such as passing data amongst travel partners, air, hotel, car, rail, around the notion of party size, and simply focusing on extracting small data from the big data and then passing that around rather than worrying about the specific tools, because the tools are out there.
Thanks, Larry. I clearly believe we've touched the nerve. It was an interesting debate about an issue that's going to be with us for some time. I do believe there is loads of opportunity for guest commentary and lots of stories that will come out of how an industry absorbs this type of thinking, i.e. the travel industry, and how new players in an fully information economy well beyond the analog world of travel, heads, beds, seats in airplanes, attacks this. So I think this is the first of many such debates that we hope to be in the middle of at TNooz, and I appreciate the panels taking the time and delivering their points of view on what is less a thorny issue than still a big question. So back to you, Kevin, and we can wrap up soon.
Okay, so just a couple of points on this. I mean, Philip Carreras says, actually as an industry we're missing the point as we discuss big data. Aren't we really talking about managing the retail experience? And he says quite rightly, I mean, we can probably learn, or what can we learn from online retailers such as Amazon? Amazon obviously being often the e-commerce giant up on a pedestal for people to aspire to. And a wonderful comment here from Carol McDowell. I'm presuming she's being flippant when she says, at this point, I'd be happy to get accurate small data first rather than big data. So, an interesting point there from Carol. So, thank you very much to everybody. Just a couple of housekeeping items. One of the things that was brought up during that, and this was some investment that was made this morning. Duetto Research, I believe it was Valen who talked about this, has secured 2.1 million in seed funding today. has quite a long list of luminaries who are investing in this. So the usual suspects: Rich Barton, Brad Gerstner. We've also got Steve Blank, who's the entrepreneur. Mark Lamano from Smith Travel Research, or ex-Smith Travel Research, and quite a few others. So clearly there are some people that are taking this very, very seriously as well. So just to wrap up then, as I said, we'll get the whole of this up on tnooz.com in the next 12 hours or so. What we will also do is we'll put some links on that particular story to some of the news items that we've been particularly talking about over the last hour or so that people can reference those. So apologies to those of you that couldn't get your question asked. We got most of them in, but please rest assured that we will be passing on those questions to the panel so that they knew what the audience was thinking about. As we said, big data is a subject that's been very close to our hearts at TNooz, certainly the last 9-10 months or so. So please keep an eye on tnooz.com for what we'll be doing with other subjects, and especially big data. So it only goes for me to say then thank you very much to all the panelists. We appreciate your time, we appreciate your intellect and your wit. We hope that you, Carsten, enjoy playing on your piano later. And I'm sure you will do. And obviously, thank you to all the rest of the panel for your time. Really appreciate it. And most of all, thank you to everybody that's listening. Like I said, we were hoping to do these every couple of weeks, every month or so. They'll probably slow down over the summer because of people being away, but this is now going to be a regular thing now. So TnoozLIVE, discussing travel tech issues and picking a subject matter each month. So thank you very much again to the panel. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you all soon. Cheers.